What is up, everybody? This is the Petty Eddie podcast, and I am, of course, your host, Eddie Mack, or aka at King Edward 15 on Twitter. I got my guy here with me today, talk all things WrestleMania. It's coming up this Saturday and Sunday night, 2 nights again. Before we get to Josh, do have to shout out the fine people in Homage, great sponsor for us, and they have the best shirts. They have all sorts of shirts, comfortable, super fitting, like whatever your size is, it's true to that size. Doesn't shrink, doesn't do anything soft. Homage.com. Make sure to go check them out. They have all things. If it's WrestleMania week, go check out the wrestling shirts. There's all sorts, like this Austin 316 one. They have all sorts one. Bret Hart, The Rock, Shawn Michaels, different shows and stuff. Go check them out. All the MLB teams. Get your Guardians gear before they kick off the season here this week. Get your Cavs gear. They just clinched a playoff spot the other night. So make sure you get your Cavs gear. Obviously, it's Brown season year round, so get your Browns gear. They have some nice Guards satin jackets. Check them out, homage.com, and at Twitter, at homage. Make sure you check out the Network 216 Twitter, at network_216, and make sure to find our links and help us out and help them out. So, great company. Can't wait to see what's in store for them. They have all sorts of things, not just wrestling and sports. They have all sorts of pop culture, The Office, Ted Lasso, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, MTV shows, movies, just anything you can think of. They probably have it. Check them out, homage.com. Now with my guest, my guy, Josh Eisenberg. If you guys do not know him, he is of Chair Shot Reality fame, a show that once wasn't. It was like a pioneer show to what I'm doing right now and what a lot of people do right now. It was really ahead of its time. I've known Josh for probably about 10 years, a little over 10 years. Randomly, we met. We'll get into that. But here's my guy, Josh Eisenberg. Josh, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. You should have told me about the Homage sponsorship because I actually just got a King of the Ring one a few weeks ago. When I went to SmackDown in Pittsburgh with my brother and my dad, we all got the Homage shirts. They're the most comfort. And I'm not even just saying this. They're so comfortable. They're so fitting. And I'm like, I packed that because I'm heading to WrestleMania. I packed my King of the Ring shirt to be a little ironic. But, man, it's great. It's good to be here, man. It's good to talk with you. How you been?
I'm good. And I always ask my guests, how are you doing physically, mentally, spiritually, all that good stuff? How's life?
Good. Yeah, doing great, man. Doing really well. Family's doing great. Wife's doing great. Recently married. Been married since July. Have a puppy. So when you get in that mid-30s range, I guess you have to settle down a little bit. And I mean, you met me at my peak. Right out of college days, running into me. Up there in up in Clarion. So then it's been great. Everything spiritually, mentally, physically, everything's going well.
Good. You're still looking good. I see you're still, keeping up with that. That's good.
Trying to. Yeah,
the LA food might, push that back a little bit this weekend. But what WrestleMania will this mark for you going to?
So this will be. So I've been at WrestleMania 23, which is my first one, and then I went from 27 to 35. And then Tampa, so 11, 12, I think. So, and this is the first time that I've been into LA. So I'm really excited about just getting to experience, SoFi Stadium, which, being a big sports fan, you see it almost, every other week on national TV, whether it's the Rams or the Chargers playing. But it's going to be an exciting time. And I think, every year there's always something that I look forward to on the card, one big thing. But this year there's so many different things. And I know we're going to talk about, the card and everything that's been taking place over the past couple of months leading to WrestleMania. But it seems like there's more storylines than just the one prominent one that people are talking about and people are looking forward to.
Yeah, and the card is incredibly stacked. And I'm glad it's 2 nights because you've been to those Manias. Mania 35 was the first and only one I've ever been to. You get in the stadium at a little after 5 or so. You've been tailgating or doing whatever all day, and you get in the stadium about 5 or so. I think the wrestling starts at 5:30 or maybe even 6. For the like the dark matches or whatever. And then here comes the thing, and then you're not leaving till 1. It's like
6 hours later, 7 hours later. That's a marathon, yeah, for sure.
And I was supposed to go to the Tampa one, but that was obviously the COVID year. But it's a long day. But so I'm glad they have 2 nights, and it's great for us fans at home. We're not sitting there for 6 hours right there. Like we all have done it, but it's nice to have 2 different nights. You can let the first card breathe a little bit and all right, react and get excited, and then we go again.
And the 2 days has been so great. I remember when we did. I went to Tampa, the one that actually had fans, WrestleMania 37, and I remember going there, and we were still maybe 10 to 12 to 14,000 fans in Tampa, and it was a really unique experience because it was like, wow, it's finally back. And then I remember I only went to the Saturday show because I had to fly back to Pittsburgh on Sunday, and I missed my guy Edge in the main event, which, it's always, sticks in my claw a little bit. But knowing that they've been able to execute 2 nights of, 2.5 to 3.5 hour shows just makes it so much easier as a fan to be heavily invested. I think it does a lot better for the live crowd more than anything. Because when you're on your couch, when you're at home, it's easy to go to the restroom. It's easy to grab some food, grab a beer. You have those matches that you're maybe not completely interested in. But I love the fact that they do 2 nights now. It just makes so much more sense, especially with the amount of talent that they have and the amount of talent that they try to continue to have on each show. It speaks to the volumes of what WWE has been able to do over the past couple of years, making both cards, interesting in their own way.
Yeah, and over the past 6, 7, 8 months, it's been Triple H, not Vince McMahon this time. The first Mania without Vince, whether he's there or not, in some way, who knows? Everyone says one thing, but I don't have sources in the wrestling business. I just read people who think they do, and those sources are often wrong. You've been in this game, and you got out of the game, so that's what I wanted to touch on first. Like, you used to do this, like you and Justin LeBar, you started Chair Shot Reality, and it looked like it was like in your it might have been in your basement or a basement or whatever.
It was we were 19 years old, so I was at Point Park University as a freshman. Justin was a sophomore, and we started with a table, an apron, 2 cameras that we had through the university, and one small one that Justin had and filmed in my parents' basement. And that turned into, the first probably year or so. We tried to do as much as we could to scrap it together to make it look somewhat professional. And that was 2000. Oh my gosh, 15 years ago. So yeah, 15 years ago. But then it kind of evolved a little bit whenever we got the ability to actually get paid to do it, which, was a huge surprise for us. So, for the first 2 or 3 years, we didn't get anything. We just did it on our own free time. We had a website that WrestleZone was able to say, hey, we'll take free content. Who's not going to say that and take free content and things like that? So after, 3 or 4 years, we started getting a little bit of money, but all that money that we were really making, we were putting into production, and kudos to Justin being able to I always say this, he's the guy that was driving the ship, and I think everybody knows that, but it was nice to be a part of the ride with him. And then obviously when we got, the ability to be part of a course curriculum class for Point Park University, that was the final 5 or 6 years of the show. We were at Point Park University, which was great because we had an opportunity to go back to our alma mater to work with students that were pursuing a similar dream that we did, in broadcasting, in television, radio, whatever the situation may be. So after we did that, man, we just wrote it out as much as possible. And as you can imagine, man, with life changes, you get older, time is a little more valuable, things change, and I was lucky to have Justin, as my guide the entire way. We added some additional people to the show that made the show really complete. 2 people at the same time is always great, but even if you look at PTI, they always bring on additional people to kind of mix it up and keep it fresh. So that's what we were able to do as well. But it was a great ride for almost 10 years. And, I still keep in touch with Justin, obviously, and still a huge fan of the product. But I always tell my wife now, because she didn't know me during that time, it's so nice to just be a fan and have the idea in the back of your mind, like, well, I wish I would do this or do that differently, but not having to get all the criticism that some of the wrestling media or whatever they want to be called get on a daily basis. I would never want to be in the field anymore just because of the scrutiny that comes with one simple tweet sometimes.
Right. And like, you guys were like a show that, like, I was a wrestling fan, and back then it really, like, it was but wasn't cool to be a wrestling fan. You knew probably like 10 people at my school that watch wrestling, trying to get together for Royal Rumbles, WrestleManias, and that thing. And I see you guys and you're doing, I was like, all right, that's cool. Like, I watched every weekend. It was every weekend there'd be 3 or 4 different parts. And like I said, it was in the basement, and then you graduated up to the different studio, and then you were at Point Park. Before that, I got to watch you guys do an episode and talk to you guys. That was cool. Caroline Collins, she was one of the interns, one of the students there. She's doing, news work. I forget where she's at now. She's all over the place. But
I think she's in Texas now. But yeah, she's been all over. 2 or 3 different
awesome.
TV
stations. You guys had a bunch of different guests, like Adam Cole. I was on. Brett Baker was on, obviously, because of the connection with Justin LeBar. And Justin LeBar, he keeps going with it, but not in the sense he does the podcast after the shows. But you guys really got me into wanting to write. Like, I can write and talk about wrestling. Like, I went to school for writing. That's what I want to do. I was like, I can write and talk about wrestling, and people think that's cool. All right, let me figure out how to do that. Then I met you at Clarion randomly.
Yeah. Wow, how things happen, huh?
I was just looking at you, and I was just like, man, that's Josh Eisenberg. And like, you're like a semi-celebrity to me. You're on the internet talking wrestling. And I went up, I was like, hey, you're Josh Eisenberg. And you like lit up, and I was just like, yeah, I watched your show, dude. And you're like, oh, sweet. And like, we talked wrestling for a minute, and then the rest of the night we just BS'd and played Pong and partied. And
it's a great night, man. Yeah, it was awesome. I always love my time up there because of people like you, just random people who are fans of wrestling, and I think I always told you, and I told other people, like the fame part was semi-famous. I don't even want to say it was really famous, but that part was kind of interesting to me because it was nice, but at the same time, like I'd rather just talk to my friends about like what we like. I don't want to be perceived as something that I'm not. And I think, I really wanted for the longest time to make sure that people could just come up and BS with me because I'm just a regular person from Pittsburgh.
And
like I'm just a regular dude who was lucky to have a website say, hey, we kind of like what you guys do. You want to get paid a little bit for it. So, but that was always my favorite part, though, was being able to talk to people about the product, about the show. And it's so funny because you can have the same opinion on one thing, but a completely different opinion on 9 or 10 other things, which makes the wrestling community always unique and always interesting.
Right. And so I didn't follow in your footsteps directly. You're off doing thing. I'm still, doing the writing thing, but I do, I work in like children's mental health and that field. So I'm still plugging away at writing and, obviously doing this podcast and stuff. But you went away from like the show. Once CSR was done, you weren't really doing much with, obviously you talk about wrestling, not as much as you once did. And I saw that, and I've seen some of the things you said, like how the media, the wrestling media or journalists or whatever you call them, they're not what they like. I thought they would be like when Justin Moore was starting to really write, different things, and you had different pieces at time. It's just not the same. I was like, I don't want to be a part of that because, like you said, they get so much criticism, and then sometimes like they don't want to play sides in this fictional war that there is, but they do, and just like, oh well, and it's just not what it was.
And it's always hearsay too, right? Like I think anything that happens that's newsworthy, it's hearsay. It's not necessarily individuals that are actually in the locker rooms, and not singling anybody out, but whenever I'm listening, just say for instance like Busted Open Radio, I listen to Busted Open because I think the insight from a WWE Hall of Famer like Bully Ray or Mark Henry, or even a guy like Tommy Dreamer, that makes me think that like I can learn more about what I don't know because I don't know. I've stepped foot into a locker room maybe 1 or 2 times as a spectator / fan. It was never my job to be in there. When I worked at the radio station in Pittsburgh, I worked as a producer and a part-time on-air talent at the Fan. So I would go into the locker room. I had some sort of what was going on with the team, but I never had that with wrestling. And all these media people for WWE or AEW, whatever the company is, they aren't in the locker room. So it's difficult to report accurately on something when it's hearsay. And I think that's the biggest difference between professional wrestling and sports entertainment than any other sport, because you can get these NFL, Ian Rappaport for a reason. He's an NFL insider. He is at all of these events. He's at all of the maybe not every single locker room, but he's at the combine breaking news. He's at the combine talking about potential trades. So he's in the know. I think that this is such a unique field where the fans are so passionate, where their passion blinds them to what is actually the truth sometimes. And I think the truth is never going to be fully thrown out there because wrestling is like a sorority. It's like a fraternity. They want to try to keep their things internally, so there's not that publicity. But again, at the end of the day, we hear one piece of information, that's news, and that's a headline, and it's clickbait. So that's what most people do now, at least from my perception, But it's just it's a unique field, man. I respect some of the friends that I still have in that industry that do it well, but it's difficult to really, you have to really be mentally strong. And I'm easily to say there's times where I'm not mentally strong, where something will tick me off on Twitter where I have to stop and not, get into it. But it's unique for people who can be successful in that field.
Yeah, and it is unique. It's like because it's a cliche thing, like, or not cliche, but it's a niche. It's like a small thing. Like in the grand scheme, it really doesn't matter. But like you said, they're not in the locker room. There were some people talking on Twitter today. I think there were some headlines from Dax Harwood's podcast where he said something along the lines of they're not in the locker room. And I was like, yeah, they're not in the locker room. And someone's like, well, how do you expect them to be? I'm just like, the NFL and all the other things have, they allow them in there because that's part of their job and it's part of the player's job to talk to the media. Like you're not seeing any of the wrestling journalists go into the locker room after every Raw, after every SmackDown, after every Dynamite, after every Rampage, after whatever show it is. They're not in there. They might be at the show and cover it for different things. And like WrestleMania, I'm sure there's going to be a ton of people there covering it for their websites and podcasts and blogs and all that thing. But it's just not what it was. It's unique. And like I sort of followed your path in that sense. I saw like you would say this before, like it really got to the forefront now. And I'm just like, and I looked into that. So like I'll read some of the stuff now, and I'm just like, all right. And then others, I'm just like, you don't know that though. Like,
Yeah.
I think maybe it's because I listen to the podcast, like Something to Wrestle and Grilling JR and 83 and all that. So I do that to do what you do to listen to Busted Open, so I can learn things that like I thought I knew. Oh wow, I didn't know that at all. Like, oh
Yeah.
wow, would have never thought that. Sweet.
Yeah, and it's crazy because one of the things that I always talk about with friends, with family, even my wife who's a teacher, she has a passion for that. And I work for MLB seasonally in their data operations still, but my full time job is in HR. And I never thought that I would be a full time work from home HR person. Whenever I guess in the same way I love talking to people and having conversations. So at the same time, like I really understand how my career path got me to this, but 10 years prior working in wrestling, or even the I've been with MLB for 11 years actually, since 2011, so this will actually be my 12th year that I'll be working with them. I always kind of thought to myself, okay, if I want to be passionate and have that as my career, I have to do it 100%. And I realized probably after 4 or 5 years working in wrestling that is my passion, but it was also souring me on my passion because I was fully engulfed with everything that was happening with it, where I couldn't sit on my couch and really enjoy it. I'd have to make it, a point to write an article every Monday. I mean, heck, every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, I was writing 4 articles for WrestleZone or Wrestling Inc. on recapping the show. And it got to a point where I'm up until 1 or 2 a.m. I'm like, okay, I know I just saw this entire show, but like I can't remember a lot of the things that have happened. It's because you're so focused on your work and so focused on putting your opinions down, you're not really getting the full details of the show. So it got to a point where I said, I'd rather love my passion as a hobby instead of trying to pursue it as something that, realistically just might not be there, at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing for everyone to hear, because I think it's great for everyone to have a passion and something that they're striving for and goals to set, or even if it's just a hobby, even if your passion is a hobby. Here's my cat coming. She always comes up to. Yeah, I think everyone should have that, and that's what you just said is very important. I hope people that hear this, take that, and if they have goals to keep chasing. I've been writing since I was 18 years old at Clarion, and a year later I met you and sort of got connected into the wrestling world here, and more so with Justin LeBar. He had me interview different guys and girls and stuff. But that's still a passion of mine. And my passion is sort of like you. I like talking to people. I like helping people. You're in HR, which obviously is not the same as child mental health, but it's similar in a sense, because talking to people all the time, you have to update people on how the client's doing, and you have to update how whoever on what. So I think what you just said is very important. I hope people take that, because at the end of the day, if you're not striving to be the best or do what you want to do in life, then you're wasting your life. Because now I don't know if I'll ever work directly with the Cleveland Browns, but I'm going to keep going until until I absolutely cannot, and until I don't think that passion's ever going to lose me. I hope not. It hasn't for 14 years now. So.
Well, I don't have any Cleveland Browns stuff, but I did strategically bring my Rock and Roll Hall of Fame cup, and it's just this diet pop. It's not anything crazy, but the Long Live Rock that I brought over. So I'm like, I guarantee Eddie's going to wear some sort of Browns gear.
Yeah.
So I had to put something Cleveland in there, even though sadly enough, I have no Browns gear. I had a Tim Couch jersey when I was, 10 years old, but other than that, which does not fit me anymore, that's probably the duration of all the Browns stuff that I've ever had. So
I also had a Tim Couch jersey because my dad bought it. So I don't have that anymore. Obviously, a lot of Browns talk on this network. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube page, network_216 is the title of that. Make sure to get daily content. All the team is doing a great job. After this show is the Faithful Dogs podcast today, Dog Chug at 10. Make sure to check those out. But they're just doing a tremendous job. They've been putting out content about every little thing, free agent signings, draft, all that good stuff. We're going to talk about Lamar Jackson this week. A little short clip for you guys. I have a lot of things planned. I think we just got over 1,000 subscribers, and we just got monetized on YouTube. So we're slowly getting there. So thank you if you are subscribing, and please like and subscribe if you're reading this and you're hearing this. Don't. We greatly appreciate it. We're just doing a giveaway. I forget what the giveaway is, or if we even started it yet. But there's one because we got to our goal. I think it's 2 or whatever the goal was. We got it. We're going to give away some homage gear. So make sure to check that out. So this year's Mania, as we said, stacked. Stacked 2 nights. It doesn't matter. We'll talk about what show should main event, or what match should main event what show. Obviously, Roman Cody's going to main event night 2. That's the biggest one. Outside like the top 4 or 5. Like, let's take out the Roman Cody, the 2 women's matches, and what else? Oh, Usos and Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. What on this card outside of those has you most intrigued, and what are you like? That's okay. Like,
yeah. So I mean, I think the one thing for me that's intriguing is just a personal favorite: Edge versus Finn Balor, and it's interesting because it's been a whole year. I mean, the Judgment Day started at WrestleMania last year when Edge beat AJ Styles and Damian Priest came out of nowhere just to distract him. And the Edge Judgment Day, the best part was the new entrance song for Edge, right? Like that's kind of what it was. I mean, he really didn't thrive as a leader, and I'm not sure why, because I think with Edge he has the ability to lead a stable. I mean, you know, he did such a great job in the mid 2000s with very low end talent. Like, I mean, no offense to Chavo Guerrero, but he made Chavo Guerrero and Vicky Guerrero an important part of a storyline, and Vicky a part of the storyline heading into his main event against The Undertaker. And so he has the ability to get a lot out of the spare parts, so to say. But when Finn Balor kind of turned on him and Edge was going away, we understood that Edge would come back. I thought the payoff would probably be something like SummerSlam, but it ended up kind of continuing to go to WrestleMania, which they've done a really good job at extending it. And now with the Hell in a Cell match, something that Edge has been, you know, notoriously known for, I think more Hell in a Cell matches recently than ladder matches in his past. Whether it's the Undertaker Hell in the Cell, Seth Rollins Hell in the Cell, he's putting on some amazing matches inside of that cell. So now you have the ability to have a the Demon Finn Balor come back at WrestleMania, which we all expect to have happen. So that match is going to be a banger of a match. Aside from that match, the other one that really intrigues me is the triple threat match between Gunther, Sheamus, and McIntyre. You know, prediction, I think Gunther wins. I don't think McIntyre or Sheamus needs that championship because they both have had world championship reigns. They've had some WrestleMania moments here and there. So I think Gunther wins that, but that's going to be one of the hardest hitting matches, I think, of the entire weekend. I think you can give them 15 to 18 minutes of them just beating the living daylights out of each other. That is a match that I think the casual fan and the hardcore wrestling fan will like. 3 big men that just like to beat the heck out of each other. So those are the 2 matches, aside from the main ones, that really stick out to me in terms of matches that are going to be able to produce great moments. And that's what WrestleMania is about, really, is great moments.
Yeah, those are very exciting. I'm very excited to see the Demon. That was speculated, and then Edge, said that in his promo, and or Finn first said it, and then Edge rebuttal with that. Might be. I'm excited to see what the entrance is. Obviously, Gangrel will be in town. I don't know if he'll be at the show, but
how great would that be? In addition to Gangrel being there,
that's the word I see on Twitter. That would be he has some involvement, either the entrance or the match or both. That would be great, and it'd be great if they can get Christian just for one night. I know that won't happen because
I don't know if it's going to happen, but I mean that'd be great if they had all 3 of them back. That's for sure.
That would be great. Obviously, that probably will not happen, but to see the spectacle of that, because the entrance of Edge alone will be great. Finn Balor will be great, especially that Demon entrance and that long ramp, getting into the cell. It's going to be a great match. Something I'm looking forward to, too, is Seth and Logan. I really love what Logan Paul has done since he's come in. He comes in, puts on these banger of matches, against anyone, and then the perfect opponent for Seth this year. Last year, obviously, it was Cody. He didn't have a match, and then everyone knew / didn't know that it was going to be Cody, and here he comes. He's off to the races too. But Seth is just at a different level right now that he just keeps just little things in his character. The way he dresses, 10 years ago, I probably would that's stupid. Now, I wish I had every single outfit that he wears to the ring. I don't care how stupid it looks. And he wore those big red boots, and I'm sure you've seen all over social media that a lot of people don't like them. I would wear the shit out of those, and no one would tell me anything. And then I see him wear them. I was like, all right, cool. I saw Lil Wayne wear them too. I was just like, yeah, I need those.
They have something there, right? They have something going on, right? The style is that. No, but I agree with you. I think the Seth and Logan Paul match is another intriguing match, and it's intriguing because of how Seth has evolved himself, which it's really strange when you think about Seth Rollins, Eddie, because you see Seth Rollins, he's had some gimmicks that really weren't fantastic. I mean, after he beat Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 35 and became the champion, he was fine, but it wasn't like he was getting over. And I know that the fans in the crowd love the song and everything like that, but he's kind of like a dislikable, likable guy. Like he comes out looking like absolute just nonsense sometimes. But the best thing that they did, obviously, is pair him with a naturally hated person in Logan Paul. The only strange thing about this, and I want to get your quick opinion on it, how they booked this match has been interesting because you had Logan Paul last week kind of cut a face promo saying like, I love this. I've wanted to do this. I'm naturally gifted at this. And then, whenever he's leaving, he's high-fiving the fans. Like a heel shouldn't do that. He's continuously getting booed by the crowd. I mean, heck, The Miz was almost getting cheered over Logan Paul going into SummerSlam last year because of how much people disliked Logan Paul. But so my question here is, even if Logan Paul somehow wins this match, I don't know what's next for him because he's already peaked so high with his 3 or 4 matches by facing Roman Reigns, by facing Seth Rollins. Is he going to be, that every 3 or 4 months he's going to do a WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Rumble, or do we see more of Logan Paul after WrestleMania?
See, I want to lean that we see more of him. I think that's why we see him more involved. But at the same time, I don't know because that dude's busy. Like that dude, a lot of people don't like him, but he knows how to grind and make money. His prime drink just came out recently, and it's the sponsor of the UFC now. So it is weird though that he is getting sort of face things, but I guess that's like 2023 in a nutshell in wrestling world anyway, because you're supposed to cheer the good guys and boo the bad guys. That's how pro wrestling works. Well, for the last, 10 years or so, 5 years or so, it's the cool thing to, the heels, like he's cool. And like Seth is this cocky, arrogant guy, but he's also, where I think they split up is like Logan comes off as like, I'm better than you, but I'm not really going to say that until I have to say it. Like, I love this business and, I've always wanted to do this and I'm naturally gifted. Like the naturally gifted part. Okay. Like we get that. You are naturally gifted. Like you are.
Yeah, he's great. Yeah. He was so impressive to me. And I give credit to him, to McAfee, even to Bad Bunny, all of them when they really put the time in, from what we've heard, all the time and effort into training and things like that. It was so interesting to me because I knew McAfee loved it. Bad Bunny was kind of a surprise, but Logan Paul is a naturally gifted athlete as well. So I don't know if it was much a surprise of how quickly he adapted or how he just continued in his matches to get better and better. And he doesn't miss a beat. I mean, he's out of the ring for 4 or 5 months at a time. And you always hear about, the pros talking about ring rust. I never see ring rust on his matches. He seems like he's been doing this for years, let alone one full calendar year since his first match. So it's just so unique to me. I mean, I wouldn't hate the fact if they had Logan Paul for 6 months where they said, hey, we'll give you a 6-month, maybe not a world championship reign, but consistently be on TV for 6 months. I think that would actually win the WWE universe over. The fact that he's not there a lot, I think that's why they dislike him. I mean, even McAfee, when he was wrestling, he was still he was commentating going into wrestling, so people saw him on a weekly basis. The part-time guys kind of have that, unless you're Roman or Brock, they kind of have a hard, a hard path to kind of to carve for themselves.
Outside of Bad Bunny is like the exception of like the recent celebrities we've seen because like you said, he was sort of a surprise and he came in and he just wows the shit out of everyone. Like
and he's coming back again, so backlash, in Puerto Rico. So
I think just people just gravitate to him. He's just such an international star that like he, no matter what, here's this big following coming with him, and that's why WWE does business with him. And then he's also passionate about it. Put the time in with whoever he was working with, and he's done well too. And McAfee is awesome. I love McAfee. And he was, like you said, he was still there, so you heard him every week. Bad Bunny, I think his aura of him is like that. But I think you're right. 6 months or so, if Logan was on there, two Raws a month at least, and 2 or 3, then I think that'd be great. And he'd obviously get better, and you can develop any sort of storyline with whoever. I'm looking forward to that. But the triple threat match, I'm also looking forward to the Sheamus and Gunther match from Clash at the Castle. That was fantastic, brutal. It was such a brutal match, but like I was like, oh my god, I can't stop watching this. Like there's 2 big dudes just beating the hell out of each other. Just like, oh my god, this is awesome. Like it could have went either way. You're just like on the edge of your seat. I do think Gunther retains. I'm with you there. I hope he has the longest streak. I hope he breaks the honky tonk streak, but I don't know if they'll do that just because Roman just is having this long streak. They might though, but I hope Gunther gets in the world title match after Mania, if they do put on Code, if they do split the titles even, whatever they do. I hope he gets in the mix. He's earned it. He's been a monster since NXT and all the way up through here. I'm all for it, and that's great for someone who Vince McMahon allegedly hated and wanted nothing to do with.
And it's so funny when you see a lot of these younger, and I mean young based not on their age, but how much they've been on Raw or SmackDown. And Gunther is a guy who, I mean, dude, you remember whenever it was Walter and people are like, oh my God, why are you changing his name to this? Do people really care? No, nobody cares anymore. Like, if you're so hung up on a name change now, especially of how great he has been in the ring. And, the funny thing is, you have Cody facing Kaiser on SmackDown.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that just gives credibility even more to what Gunther is and what he's trying to do with Imperium. They have an opportunity for Gunther to be one of the best international heels in quite some time. And I say I think he could be a better heel than even Sheamus when Sheamus was at his peak, whenever he was world champion. Because really when Sheamus was champion, he was kind of in between of the Celtic Warrior and the stupid mohawk, and it wasn't something consistent with him. They always tried to reinvent him, which now you see, just don't reinvent what's working and what's good. I think Gunther can be that guy where he is that international heel that WWE loves, but there's been such a long time where they haven't had that. And I don't know if it's the language barrier that they have issues with creating stars over from other countries, but this is a guy that they can invest in. Big, strong, physical, a wrestler, a fighter. I mean, he is a believable guy who could be a world champion. Yeah, so I completely agree with you. I think after WrestleMania, whatever they do with the titles, he could be next in line. I wouldn't hate him going for the world championship, even if he was intercontinental champion. So they have a lot of options with him, and I think the best is still yet to come with Gunther.
I was really hoping it would be him and Brock. They had that stare down in the Rumble.
Yeah.
I was like, oh man, that would be badass. Whether Brock nixed that or whether they, as a company, decided, hey, we have something here. Because they've been doing a better job of telling longer stories. The Bloodline's obviously the longest one. This triple threat has been weaved in. They've been weaved in and out with each other for months now. The rest of Imperium, Edge and Finn, like you said, has been a year long. We don't see that in wrestling anymore because fans are too impatient, and then sometimes the companies jump the gun on things, and sometimes it overstays the argument. None of these feel overstayed. Everything just feels like Edge can go off for a month or two to do his shows or whatever, and then come right back and pick up right where he left off.
And it seems natural, right? Like it seems the natural progression of these storylines are working. I mean, really, aside from a few matches that don't really have a long build, I mean, the Brock and Omos match, it's just to see if Brock Lesnar can F5 a 400-pound, 7'2" or 7'3" guy. I don't think there needs to be much to look into with that. It is what it is. Am I excited for it? It's okay. Like, it'll be cool to see them weigh in tonight. Their weigh in on Monday Night Raw. And then moving obviously to this weekend at WrestleMania. But I think aside from that, and maybe the women's 6-woman tag match, which was kind of thrown together, but I always love seeing Trish Stratus and Lita. They had their Rivals documentary thing on A&E a few weeks back, which just puts into perspective, how innovative they were for the women's division and for the women's revolution in 2004 when they main evented Raw. So, and they were both two women that had their careers kind of cut short for different reasons, whether it was motherhood or neck injury. So it's good to see them back. But other than that, there has been like you were saying, there has been that natural progression with each storyline, that there is a history there. And kudos to them, because again, like you were mentioning as well, there were times where we would have a feud going into WrestleMania that started 2 weeks before. Like, what's going on here? You're just trying to throw something on the card to make sure that you're getting those people in there. So that's why I'm really excited to see I think of 13 announced matches. So 6 and 7 one night, get it under 3 hours. And really a good opportunity for everybody to shine, not just 1 or 2 matches.
Yeah, a couple of things I have issue. Like, I know they try and get as many people as I can on the card, and it's better now that it's 2 nights. The WrestleMania showcase matches I could do without. Like, I'm glad that they're getting time and stuff, but I'm not invested.
Bathroom break for me. Bathroom and beer break. So that'll be
no offense to the performance, but those matches mean nothing. I mean, I'll watch them, and I'm sure they'll do some great things, and I'll be entertained.
And I'm hoping that they put like a stipulation, like if it's a WrestleMania showcase, then the winner should get a championship opportunity. Yes. Like that should be something that's just common sense.
Right. If they do that, I'm all in for it because I want to see Shayna and Ronda go on like a 2-woman power trip, but with the tag titles, dominate. And then maybe eventually they keep the tag titles and go after the Raw and SmackDown titles. I think that'd be great. They tease it all the time. They were supposed to get the titles. They're not supposed to get the titles. They don't have them. They're not in the title match. So I don't know. I'm with you. I'd like to see a stipulation because outside of that, I'm not really invested in those. And I know that the Street Profits are great. I love Alpha Academy. The Viking Raiders have done well since they returned. Braun and Ricochet is a weird tag team to me, but
nobody understands that. They didn't like each other. Then let's throw them together. So,
which that's a WWE thing. That's what they do. Here's two, Sheamus and Cesaro had the best of 7, and they formed the bar. That's just something WWE does. And then the women, Liv and Raquel, love Liv. Raquel does nothing for me.
Yeah.
Shotzi and Natty, I love Shotzi. Natty's been doing it forever, so she's
just the constant. Yeah.
Shayna and Ronda, and there's going to be a mystery team that haven't announced. I have no idea who that could be.
It could be something like Chelsea Green. I know they had her with Carmella. Maybe they have somebody. I mean, there's a lot of women still, which is odd because there's 4 women's matches that, you have people like Sonya Deville, which was a huge part of WWE programming last year, and she's not really anywhere to be found. I mean, she just had a match for the SmackDown Women's Championship against Charlotte a month or 2 ago, I think, in like January or February, and she's nowhere to be found. Then you have like Doudrop, Zelina Vega. So, but you're right. I mean, look at the women's tag teams. Aside from really Shayna and Ronda, they're throwing together tag teams. But yet, years ago, you had actual women's tag teams. So that's why that match doesn't really interest me as much, because I think it's a foregone conclusion that Ronda and Shayna end up winning. And I think they eliminate all 3 teams and they maybe go for the women's tag team championships. I would have rather seen them against the women for the women's tag team championships, maybe Lita and I would have rather seen Lita and Becky Lynch versus Shayna and Ronda for so many reasons, and then have Bayley versus Trish Stratus. And I think those are 2 bigger matches on their own, aside from the women's showcase and then the 6-woman tag match, which whatever the outcome is for either of them doesn't really do much unless you see some sort of a turn. And if you see a turn, is it going to be Trish Stratus turning on her longtime friend? It just doesn't seem like it adds up. So again, with you, those matches are interesting, but at the same time, it's like, I don't really know if I'm heavily invested in them. But again, overall, if I'm not heavily invested in 2 or 3 matches, but I'm invested in the other 9 or 10, that's a win for me. You're not always going to love every match. So.
No, those are like the 3 that showcases in the 6-woman tag that, it's going to be cool to see some of that stuff, but okay. One match I'm really looking forward to is Ray and Dom, because I really love the story that they've done. Prison Dom has been hilarious. It's a much needed thing for him as a character and as a performer, because last year, he was with his dad. He's Rey Mysterio's kid, for the past couple of years, father son tag team champs, great, but then it got stale, and then everyone wanted Dom to turn on Ray, and then he finally does, and everyone's like, oh wow, what, like you're this and that. And then at first he was like sort of trash. He's getting slightly better on the mic, but I think he's found something with this Prison Dom thing. He gets arrested and thrown in the tank for a few hours, and then he acts like he did a hard time. That's just hilarious. It's like Michael Scott on The Office.
Exactly. Yeah, Prison Mike. Yeah. No, I think this is a really great storyline that took me by surprise, because I always appreciated what Rey Mysterio did, but I think the one thing that Rey Mysterio lacked for me was interesting storylines. I mean, it was always just he's the ultimate underdog, and now you're putting something that is so much more heavily invested because it's a son. So whenever you see Dom kind of being this just ultra dastardly heel, and you feel for Rey Mysterio, even somebody that might not particularly have loved Rey Mysterio for his entire career, but I love the angles, the intricacies, in the breaking point that we saw on SmackDown with his mom. That had to be the breaking point for Rey Mysterio, is standing up for his wife. And for Dom to say that to his mother, I mean, I would never in a million years want to say that to Nancy Eisenberg. Right. She would be like, excuse me, get out of my house. And never, right. But it's really nice that they leaned into something that was a joke, still a little serious. And I'm excited for the slow progression again for that one. They took Rey Mysterio off of Monday Night Raw 5 months ago because I assume in the back of their mind, they're saying, we need to let this draw out until WrestleMania. That's the payoff. And they did a great job at keeping it in the back of our minds with little YouTube or little Twitter videos from like Thanksgiving and Christmas and things like that. But now they're capitalizing. And I couldn't agree more. I think it's just going to be such a unique environment. And Dom Mysterio is probably the most hated person in all of pro wrestling right now. The most universally hated person in all of pro wrestling.
Yeah, and I really love the Twitter videos of, him getting breaking in, or not breaking in, but going to the house at Thanksgiving and then getting arrested. And then those add so much. Like, there's always the debate now of like whether if you know someone on a show or not. Like, it's more so with AEW. Like, here's these guys that are great in other promotions, but a lot of us don't know who the hell they are. So we have to go to YouTube and watch them go, do all this research. All you have to do is go to Twitter, which I'm sure most people are on. Oh, here's a clip from WWE. Oh, wow, Dom broke into the house and did this. And it's just been fantastic. One thing I wish they would have went back to that was sort of like a joke too was Eddie Guerrero as the father. I wish Dom would have said something like, "You're not even my real dad, Eddie is." That would have been cool. I can see why they did.
Well, he said, didn't he say something like, "I wish Eddie was my father" or something? I think he said something like that. But, they could have leaned into that a little bit more.
Yeah, I would have loved that because that was a great story. When I was a kid, I thought that was legitimate. Like
me too. They did a great job. He looks like Eddie Guerrero too. That's the crazy part. Like he looks like Eddie with the hair and everything right now.
But I'm with you. Him, telling his mom to shut up. That had to be it. A lot of people were worried that it might be at the Hall of Fame. I don't think that would have been right.
No, neither do I. Yeah.
He can sit there in the crowd and scoff at it, or he can get up and leave once his dad comes.
Or just not even show him, because I think they've gotten so much out of this feud so far where they're really, they really don't even need to be on Raw or SmackDown leading up to the show. They didn't need to be on those two shows going into WrestleMania. Their last real big interaction for me was, okay, he said shut up to the mother. Ray punched him. Yep. Give it a week. If they want to do something, I don't know. I could go either way about the whole Hall of Fame thing, but just leave it as it is. You've already done so much. There's not really a need to continue to enhance that storyline the night before, WrestleMania Saturday.
So I'm with you there. Theory and Cena, I think that's going to be cool to see Cena back. It's WrestleMania. It's John Cena. I know Hulk Hogan was the one that catapulted WrestleMania. Then a handful of guys, and then Austin took the ball and ran with it for a little bit. Then it was Cena. He was in damn near every main event or, doing something at WrestleMania. I'm excited to see him back, and I'm excited to see the match they put together. I think they're really going to showcase Theory is the next top guy, and John Cena is going to sort of pass the torch. I don't think this will be his last match, Cena, unless he says about it. I think he'll have at least one or two more. But I do think this is a great match for Austin Theory to showcase why he has been highly touted since his Evolve days.
Yeah, and you also have this match starting WrestleMania Saturday.
Oh, yeah,
so they announced that as well, which I think is a great idea. The only other match that I was kind of interested in maybe starting off, depending on what main events night one, would have been Charlotte and Rhea, because I think the opening match at times is just as important as the final match. I'd rather be the opening match than match number 4 on the card. So if I'm not in the main event, put me in the beginning, and after you get maybe the Miz as the host, welcome us to WrestleMania. Fireworks go off, Cena's music hits, crowd's gonna go crazy in LA. Cena's universally loved now, and again, it goes back to, Cena is Seth Rollins. He's universally loved now. Whenever at times, as we know, people booed Cena. In Theory, is the Logan Paul. He's universally disliked, and it's so strange to think that a lot of pro wrestling isn't like that anymore, but they're striking with the right people. There's 3 really universally disliked people in my mind from fans' perspectives. Well, maybe 4 if you added Baron Corbin, but it's Theory, it's Logan Paul, and it's Dominic Mysterio. And the other counterparts are 3 universally loved guys now. So it just fits so well when you think about that. But I agree. I think that this is going to be a highlight reel of a night for Theory, especially because we know Cena can't go as much as he used to. And Theory is still at the early stages of his career. I mean, he's 26, 27 years old, something like that. Yeah, so he has 15, 20 more years. I mean, we always talk about people in their prime. I can honestly say that I think the last few years for somebody like an Edge or the last few years of Triple H's in-ring career was just as good, if not better, than his what they call prime in the Attitude Era or in the early 2000s. So this is going to be a good match, a great opportunity for them to kick off WrestleMania. And again, no need for Cena to win, but this can catapult Theory of beating John Cena. And as you know, Eddie, you beat a big name on the big stage, you can hold that credit for years to come.
For years, and that's a type of thing for his character to do. I beat John Cena at WrestleMania. It doesn't matter who his opponent is next year, 10 years from now. I beat John Cena. Did you? No, you haven't done anything like that.
The Miz still uses that, doesn't he? He beat John Cena in the main event. He's used that. He hasn't been relevant for main event really stories in years.
Yeah, outside of when they transitioned the title from him to
Bobby,
that was a little bit of a surprise, but cool moment because like you said, Miz did main event WrestleMania. A lot of people were like, yeah, okay. He did. So that's something that Theory will have under his cap. We'll do the women's matches and then transition to the whole Bloodline storyline. First, the build hasn't been anything special of Bianca and Asuka. Hasn't been great. Asuka's teased spitting the mist in her, so I'm assuming that they're setting that up for the match, or maybe we're recording this on Monday, so we don't even know what happens going into WrestleMania. Yeah. It could, be the mist on Monday Night Raw, but it just hasn't been doing much. We get this newer sort of old version of Asuka is her Kana character, and we haven't really seen much. She just comes out and laughs, and the mist goes down the face.
And it's hard to fill time talking about this because you're right. There hasn't just been much to really invest your time in storyline wise. I really think that, they could have easily made Asuka, weeks ago, hit Bianca in the face and even just say, you've had your WrestleMania moment. I've never had mine. Mm-hmm. Because Asuka really hasn't had that WrestleMania moment to solidify her as a mainstay. She lost to Charlotte, broke the streak at WrestleMania 34, and that was her biggest moment in a loss. And it was a great match, no doubt. From when I was there in New Orleans, it was one of the best matches of the night. But she never got that shiny moment, and Bianca has had it for 2 straight years. Main eventing WrestleMania in Tampa, and then last year beating Becky Lynch. So if anything, that's the storyline I would have leaned into. I don't know why they tried to make this so wonky. I just fear if they don't give Asuka the championship, that she's going to go back to where she was a year ago, which wasn't really anything of relevance and was in random tag teams.
That's where I'm leaning to. I want to see, and I think Asuka does win this. I think that I think Triple H obviously is high on her because he had her in NXT and she was this mega star down there and this great champion and all that, put on great matches with everybody. Bianca's had her time and she's done a great job. When they made her and Sasha main evented, that was awesome. Great history. A great match too. She's performed when she has been called upon, but now I think it'd be Asuka's turn, and then that transitions Bianca back into the chaser.
Yeah, let's see. But she's always better as a chaser. She's a better chaser. Yeah,
most faces are better. Austin was a better chaser than he was a champion. Like, it was cool when Stone Cold got that belt, but it was cool leading up to it. Vince McMahon throwing all these obstacles in his way, and then boom. I'd like to see that for Bianca too. Have to go, and she did before she went back to the bottom and then came back up. I'd like to see that again, or see if she gets like a little bit of an edge to her.
And I think, as we're even talking about the women's matches, I mean, Charlotte and Rhea's, obviously we're talking about next. I mean, look at the evolution of Rhea since a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. She was in a similar situation, but again, does it go back to just maybe the language barrier is too much? And I think that's what it is, because Rhea has, she's not from the States, but she can speak perfect English. I think that might be a reason why Asuka might have that tough time to really consistently get over. And I think that's a problem for her.
See, I think she could lean more into like the mind games of have like some sort of her music. So not like not have her join Bray Wyatt or have anything demonic like him, but something that like you hear this sound like, oh, here comes Asuka.
Here she comes. Yeah.
And I love the mist. I love the mist spot. I've loved that forever. Tajiri used to be the master of it.
Yeah.
It just obviously that's probably going to play some sort of role in the Mania. I'm assuming that will be leading up to the finish, whether she hits her with the mist, then hits her with her finisher, whatever.
Yeah.
I do think she wins. I do think that they need to do that. That way they can go back and forth in the summer and do whatever.
I think so too. Yep.
The Charlotte Rhea one, everyone's like, oh, the storyline's not that great. I actually enjoy this because it's a 3-year story, basically. The COVID Mania that was in the warehouse in front of nobody. That's when Charlotte, she went for the NXT title and beat Rhea for it. I thought Rhea should have won that, but then here she is years later, and look at from that point until this point, like you said, her transformation as a character and as a wrestler has just been like, oh wow, like I was hoping it'd be her and Bianca because I feel that's the next. I'm not comparing the two, obviously, but it's the next Rock Stone Cold for the women's division. Like Trish and Lita was the Rock Stone Cold of.
Yeah, it's like the next Sasha Charlotte, really, when you think about
Sasha
it.
Charlotte.
2 different styles that work so well together. Bianca's strong but smaller. Rhea's this big presence. I think she's 165 pounds, and it's like 5'10". But yeah, that's a great comparison when you think about it. They have, and they're both at a point in their careers where they've done so much already. Mm-hmm. But again, as I go back to Bianca comparison to Asuka, Rhea's never had that WrestleMania moment. So I think this is the moment where Rhea becomes SmackDown Women's Champion. It's interesting because Charlotte doesn't have the best track record at WrestleMania, but I think that she knows that she's Teflon. There's you can do anything to her, and she will be perfectly fine. I would really prefer to see Rhea on SmackDown with the Judgment Day on SmackDown after WrestleMania, because Monday Night Raw, they've been really good on Raw, but I just think there needs to be more and more emphasis. And it's kind of contradictory because Raw is 3 hours compared to SmackDown being 2 hours. But the overall spotlight, I think, at times is SmackDown has these mega stars. SmackDown has this. This is Fox compared to USA. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think Rhea wins. Do you think this main event's night one, or do you think the tag match main events?
I was going to ask you the same thing.
Yeah, I know.
I would have. See, I go back. I don't care which one main event. I honestly do not. Both are warranted in that. Rhea won the Rumble. They always advertise that the Rumble headlines Mania. I know they say headlines, but they say main event a lot too.
Yeah.
I don't think they have to do it just because I don't think they necessarily have to have a women's main event. They don't have to split it every year, but I think that's what they leaning towards mostly. I just don't know if you're going to have the Usos and KO and Sammy on night one, and you're not putting that first or last. Like,
you can't have that in the middle of the card, And
you can't have it before Roman and Cody the next night because that just takes away all that. I don't know. I either one.
So I would either say that one of these two matches ends night one and begins night two. So if you have the tag match end night one, then you throw Bianca and Asuka in night one, and then you can have Charlotte and Rhea kick off night two, or you flip it, where Sunday is all about the Bloodline storyline, and it's all about that. So maybe you want to do that in one night, especially considering if you really want Cody to win, maybe you eliminate the Usos because of their match earlier in the night, so you don't expect them to come out and beat up Cody or interfere in that match, even though Solo Sikoa is still a big part of this. But when I look at this, I think I'd be good with either one because I know both of these matches are going to deliver. Right. Which brings me to, okay, I'm good with either one, but then I think about the entire Bloodline storyline. That deserves, in my mind, both main event spots. And I think that would also be something, and this is probably me just thinking way too much into it. What would that say to people who always bash WWE or who talk about, people are getting better opportunities in AEW when completely anti-WWE prototypical people are main eventing and it's a tag team match? There hasn't been a tag team main event since WrestleMania 1. Mm-hmm. So if you say, okay, we have the Usos, but then we have Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, who are obviously two of the most over guys aside from Cody and the Bloodline, which all are intertwined. Why not have that match main event night one and say, look at what we've done with our tag team division. We're elevating this tag team division to be one of the best and most important matches. And then, night one ends with the first crack in the foundation because I do think that the Usos lose those championships to Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens.
I do too. And I'm fine with it. Like I said, I'm fine with either one. I do think that now that I hear it out loud, not just thinking it myself, I do think that the Usos and Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn deserve to be the main event. And I went, Sami Zayn has done a tremendous amount of work over the past year or so. It's just been great. Like, he went through these different gimmicks, and the conspiracy theorist was awesome. I thought that was great. And then he was like in a lull for a little bit, and then he wants to be accepted by the Bloodline, and then he finally gets it, and then that sort of progresses, and then he's the one who turned. That was a great moment. I really think I'm with you. If whatever one doesn't main event, the other one kicks off. That one kicks off night two. But this storyline has been so good. This is probably their best storyline. This is definitely their best storyline they've done 10, 15 years. Yeah. And it might be prisoner of the moment, but the Bloodline might have surpassed a lot of the top factions of best factions.
Oh yeah.
It's a 3-year span. Like,
it's hard to disagree with that. I mean, the Shield was so unique because the Shield was 3 young up and coming guys who didn't have an established star. So I love that aspect of it. But when you think about everything that the Shield did, they were tag team champions, U.S. champions, Intercontinental champion, then world. Like, all 3 of them held the world championship in the same night. Money in the Bank 2016. I was there for that in Vegas, which was a great show. This is different because it is a faction based on family. And that is the most relatable thing, is whenever you have brothers and cousins working all together for one outcome. And there's always going to be cracks in the foundation. There's always going to be, well, what if this or what if that? Or my really good friend who I consider family is doing more for me than my family. But then it always goes back to, okay, it's family. Yeah. So, yeah, you're right. It's probably the best storyline, and they're probably the best faction. I mean, I think that they're probably surpassed Evolution at this point in my mind. Evolution was great, but they didn't have the level of character development and storyline development over the past 9 or 10 months that we've seen. And I don't know if we've seen that in 20 years in WWE.
Right. I think they're right on the doorstep of DX and NWO as well. Like, I think they're right there. They might be ahead of them. I'd have to think a lot more about that. We'd have to have a longer conversation on that. But they're right there. Like, character development, there was minimal in NWO. It was just a bunch of guys jumping ship and
With 30 people in the NWO on one random Monday night. Yeah.
Right. So. And then there's 2 NWOs and a third. No, it was just too much. DX didn't have character development. They had story development, but not necessarily the characters. The Outlaws were the Outlaws for the duration of DX. X-Pac was X-Pac. Triple H then morphed into what he became as the main event guy. But they're right there because you have Roman, and his character has been the best thing in pro wrestling in a while. And then Sami Zayn, you had that Sami Zayn element. And it's like, oh my God. And there was reports that Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn were unhappy with WWE and they were going to jump ship and go be with their friends in AEW. And they both signed like 5-year contracts. And now they're in a position to possibly main event night 1 of WrestleMania or kick off night 2 with the overall story of the bloodline coming full circle. And I'm with you. I think KO and Sami win. I don't necessarily think that means that Roman also loses.
Okay.
Because this match, I really think that WWE wants to get him to 1,000 win. Everyone expects Cody to win. He came back last year, had a great match with Seth, got hurt, had the torn pec. Yeah. Great visual. I don't know how he did that, but they got through that match and it was epic. He comes back, wins the Rumble, of course, as many assume. Goes on, he's going to finish his story and win at WrestleMania. Well, everyone's expecting that, so maybe throw a little bit of that swerve that pro wrestling is good for. And Roman walks away. He goes on for another however long it is to get to 1,000 days, and then at Backlash or maybe Cody wins Money in the Bank and wins it that way. It doesn't necessarily have to end because then you always have to ask what's next for Cody. Does Roman go away if he loses? I really think I'm leaning more towards, and I'll see obviously later tonight when Raw comes on if anything develops. I'm really leaning Roman Reigns in this match, just because I think Cody's such an obvious choice.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree with anything that you're saying there because it is obvious, and I think the writing's on the wall that he is the favorite to win. If you want to put a favorite together, but it's just I don't know if he loses, he'll still be over. People will still love him, but I think it's time now. I think it's just time for Roman to finally face somebody who is worthy of dethroning him. And nothing against Drew McIntyre, because for a split second, I thought that he may have been able to beat Roman at Clash at the Castle going into that because of the storyline. And then I realized, okay, like he had his moment, even though it was a losing effort. They brought his old theme music back. He was in his hometown. It was an amazing atmosphere. That was his WrestleMania moment, and he didn't need to win that. But I think Cody needs to win this. I think if you don't have Cody win this, he goes into Money in the Bank potentially. Money in the Bank's typically better for a heel to cash in cowardly and win. I mean, they had Big E, 2 years ago or whatever as the face. Yeah, but I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Roman won. But I do think that they have to pull the trigger because I do think that he's going to be part-time even more so in 2023, and he ramps things back up during SummerSlam. I think he's going to take 5 or 6 months off. And I think it's warranted because that's when you can really create other storylines. And you also still have the Usos, who, what are they going to do without their tribal chief?
I don't know who it was. There was someone, maybe just some random person on Twitter the other day said they showed a video of Roman yelling at Solo going up the ramp. Hey, are they going to Julius Caesar Roman?
Yeah.
That's a great thing because let's say Cody does win the title and Roman comes out. He's like, what the hell? Where were you guys? You guys lost and then I lost and blah, blah, blah. And then here comes Solo and gives him the spike, and then they all 3 take him out. I can see that, and then give him that time off, and he comes back maybe SummerSlam. But he deserves a time off because there is no off season in WWE. Obviously, he's not a part timer per se, but he more so is. And then, like you said, he's going to further be a part timer.
Yeah.
Especially if he gets into Hollywood, which I think he has a good chance of doing. He has the look. Obviously, he can act. We've seen him act. But I could see that where he comes out and blames them and. Then they're like, you know what? We're not taking it. You're not the champ anymore. You're not providing for us anymore. All right, we're providing for us now. I think
because there's ultimately going to be that breakup of some sort, and they can always get back to it because they're family. But I mean, there has to be that explosion, I think it could happen very soon after WrestleMania if Cody ends up winning. So it's going to be interesting because I do think when all the smoke is cleared, if Cody does become champion, that signals in a new era for WWE. Not a bad era, but a new one where they're going to put. I mean, Cody's still in his mid-30s. He has so much time left, and he's done so much already. It's going to be interesting to see how LA really reacts to a lot of these people that they're having on the show, because I think if Cody wins, you have 4 guys in my mind immediately that you can line up and face in the next 6 or 7 months. If Roman wins, I don't know who's next for Roman.
It would have to be Gunther at that point, like or Theory. I mean, Theory's already been sort of in the mix, but yeah. So now that you say that, like, obviously it's probably going to be Cody, but there's just part of me that really feels that Roman is winning this.
You might be right, man. Who knows?
I don't know.
We'll know this time next week. I'll be watching Raw, probably in my hotel room, waiting for my red-eye flight to come back to Pittsburgh, and I'll be like, "Wow, that was a hell of a show." And I think that's what's going to happen, though. I think it's going to be noteworthy. I think we're going to have a few little surprises, some shock moments. But at the end of the day, like we talked about at the beginning, man, the card's stacked. And there's a lot of really great things to look forward to this WrestleMania. Even more so than last year. I was excited about last year's card as well. But I think this one from top to bottom could be up there, one of the best that they've ever put on. You know, everybody always talks about 17 and 30, and sometimes 31 is some of the best WrestleManias. But this one could surpass a handful of them.
I thought 35 might have surpassed some of those as well. Maybe it's because I was there, but just the different moments. They had Kofi winning the title. Stuff coming out and slaying Brock at the beginning of the show. And then you had the women main event. That was up there. Like, I've went back and watched it, I think, once or twice since I've gone. I'm like, wow, this was a great show. Like, some of it I don't remember. I'm just like, man, that's a long time. But like, yeah, this could be one of the best ever. I hope it is. You know, each year they get bigger. I'm excited to see the setup. I'm always a big fan of the setup and how the set looks and how they turn into the thing. And you're going to be there at SoFi, a great stadium from TV. Before I let you go, obviously, this is not chair shot reality. We have talked about doing some reunion shows of sort, and that's still in the works. Down the line, we'll get together with everyone else. But he's obviously not in charge. Does not please Vince anymore. I need you to do a please. If you want to call him Paul or Triple H, I don't care what you call him.
How about Hunter? I think they call him Hunter, right? That's the cool thing to do.
Hunter. Yeah, we'll do that for after WrestleMania and beyond. So like the next 6 to 12 months. Please Hunter.
Okay. All right. I can do one. I can dust one off. Let's see here. All right. I'm just going to, the first thing that comes to my mind. All right. Please, Hunter. Please, for the love of God, do not listen to the internet wrestling community. Now, we all think that we're the best. We all think we have the best ideas. But there's constant complaining and bitching and moaning when your NXT males or females are brought up and brought back from being released. And there's a lot on the WrestleMania card that don't have anything to do, i.e. Hit Row, Karrion Kross. Dakota and Io obviously in a big 6-woman tag team match, but they've been booked interestingly where they dropped the titles for relatively no reason. But consistency is a big thing in pro wrestling. You bringing up all these NXT people that were only being viewed by 500,000 or 600,000 people, and most of them during the pandemic, so sometimes even less, not getting an opportunity to connect with an actual live audience. Please, Hunter, patience is the key to getting these NXT stars to the next level. You brought them back because you have an eye for talent. You brought them back because they provide you something, and you brought them back because you need to develop a bench when people like Edge, John Cena, Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns, all these big names are no longer your bread and butter. So what do? You go to the developmental system. You've done such a great job, and WWE as a general have done such a great job at replenishing the women's division where, we still have Charlotte dominating, and people probably still miss Sasha Banks. But we're not really missing her now because we saw the evolution of Rhea Ripley. We see Bianca Belair continuing to be at the top of her game in the ring. And what happened? Patience. So patience with your males, with your females that you brought up from NXT to Raw and SmackDown. It's going to take some time. And if I could say one thing and give you one person or one word that you want to put all of your eggs in one basket, LA Knight. Please, Hunter.
Man, that was fantastic. It made me feel like I was watching CSR again on my
Top
computer.
of my mind. I didn't even expect it, but yeah, there you go. I guess I still got something when he just dusted off. So
Of course, LA Knight. That's interesting. I wish he was on the card. He might
yeah,
still find a way on the
I
card.
think he'll
Maybe
do something on
Lashley,
there. Yeah,
maybe him and Lashley if Bray can't go for whatever reason. Bray is not there. But LA Knight's fantastic. Like he has everything. Like
he's got it.
He was what Eli Drake in Impact. I've seen some of that. It was pretty good. But then he's in NXT and he does this character. I'm like, oh yeah, that's it.
He's good. Yeah, I can't wait to see what he does next too.
Well, my man, I hope you have fun and have safe travels this weekend. This will be like your 13th WrestleMania. That's incredibly awesome.
Yeah,
Enjoy that.
Man.
Thanks for coming on the show. Tell people where they can find you, and tell people if the Mavericks are going to make the playoffs or not.
I think right now they're down a few to Indiana, and they lost twice to the Hornets back-to-back games. So I don't know about that. But at Josh Eisenberg 4 on Twitter, man. And anytime you want me to hop on and talk pro wrestling and talk NBA, NFL, you let me know, man. Always here to help you guys out.
I appreciate it. And like I said earlier, Josh's been a friend of mine for 10 years. And like he's someone that actually reaches out from time to time. Hey, man, you all right? You doing all right? Or he'll see some of my posts on social media. Hey, man, I saw this. You doing all right?
Got you, man. Gotta be a friend.
I say whatever to him. And he's like, all right, try this, this, and this. Okay. And I try it. I'm like, that doesn't work. Then this other thing where I'm like, okay, cool. And then, I've reached out to him. So I wish you nothing but the best moving forward. We'll do this definitely again. It's been a lot of fun. Obviously, follow myself, King Edward 15. He said Josh Eisenberg 4 for him. Network_216. Make sure you follow us on Twitter. Make sure you like and subscribe to the YouTube page. A lot of giveaways coming, a lot of good things. Homage.com. Make sure to go get your fandom gear of whatever you are a fan of. So for Josh, I'm Eddie. Until next week, go Browns.